Hey, how about you, everybody? Welcome into the Monday edition of Inside the 20 with myself and Keith Niebuhr. We will do our absolute best trying to get you as much recruiting intel as possible inside the 20-minute mark. I'm joined, as I always am, by Mr. Keith Niebuhr. Keith, how you doing, big dog?
I'm good, man. And you know what time it is.
Ooh.
We got to pay some bills before we get crazy.
Pay the bills, and the man to do it is our buddy and good friend, Mr. Caleb Schofield. Mike Patton Auto in LaGrange, Georgia. Caleb's got, first of all, let's mention this again because a few more days left in this month, which means he's offering F-150s at invoice only. F-150s, get you an F-150 at invoice only now through the end of the month. He also has a four-door Bronco and a Ford Raptor. And then, you know what else he's got, Keith? Do you know?
No, I don't. I'm waiting for you.
He's got a Mustang Mach-E. Mustang Mach-E. All electric, dude. There's only like 5 in the entire country. He's got one of them. He's also got a full lot of Ford, Lincoln, Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, and Hondas. Even more when it comes to the used car lot. All those used cars come with a must pass a multi-point inspection. Back all the used cars with a free 3-month, 3,000-mile warranty. The new cars are even more guaranteed. Lifetime powertrain warranty, unlimited time, unlimited mileage. Not in the market for a car? Shoot. And you know somebody who is? Send them to Caleb. He'll send you $300. Caleb Schofield, Mike Patton Auto, 334-531-0996. Hey, Keith, Auburn got some good news. Without a head coach, on what day was it? 4-star Darren Reed from Carver, Columbus. Huge flip for Auburn. Flips from LSU to Auburn. Good timing, too, because LSU got thumped by A&M. But Darren Reed, Keith, from Carver.
Yeah, that's a big one. I mean, Jeffrey, we were thinking about this. When was the last time Auburn got a big-name guy out of Carver High School in Columbus? Was it Gabe Wright? Was he the one?
I can't think. Deron Furr? Was that the same class? You remember Deron Furr?
That was before me.
Deron Furr and Gabe Wright are the last guys from Carver that I think.
It's been a while. So you're talking about a 4-star defensive lineman. He's going to end up being a tackle. Probably could play strong side end, too. He's a versatile guy on the defensive line. A big-time playmaker, strong, physical, great size. You know, at one point was leaning FSU. Then at one point was leaning Ohio State. Then he committed to LSU. So we kind of knew that things kind of went with the wind sometimes with him. So we weren't ready to count anybody out. And Auburn felt the same way. Jimmy Brumbaugh, defensive line coach, a lot of work here. And we said all along, Jeffrey, both of us, sometimes we got to pat ourselves on the back, and then when we're wrong, we just kind of ignore it. But this is times we can pat ourselves on the back. We said, hey, listen, we're both hearing that NIL is going to be a factor for him. And, I mean, he committed to Auburn Friday when Auburn did not have had an interim coach and didn't know who the permanent coach was going to be. So you don't do that unless you feel good about everything else. And then also perhaps you're liking the NIL situation at Auburn. So, look, it's a huge pickup. Auburn's got to replenish on the O-line, on the D-line, and obviously got to figure out the quarterback situation moving forward too. Regardless of whether Robbie Ashford is on the team or not next year or is the starter or not or whatever, we don't know what's going to happen based on coaching decisions and all that. But we know that those are probably the 3 biggest needs. In the D-line, you're just not going to win games in the SEC if you don't have one of those dominant defensive lines. And Auburn's defensive line this year, Jeffrey, was okay.
Average.
They weren't bad. But
inside, the edges were good.
Yeah, you got to get
ends were good.
You got to get better, and that's what they're trying to do, and that's a huge pickup for Auburn. That's a guy that's probably going to be a multi-year starter if all goes as planned. We'll see, but significant, and that got a lot of people talking. How did they get this guy without a head coach? Well, that's what fans are saying. You know what recruits are saying? Well, that's an interesting flip. Maybe I need to look at Auburn a little bit more and find out what's going on there.
Yes. And, I remember I had Darren Reed about 50-50 back in September because dude kept coming back. Yeah. He was at almost every home game, which a lot of these big-time recruits have been as well. But when you keep coming back and you're 30 minutes down the road, but I remember LSU guy on our LSU on 3 board tagged me, and he was like, Jeffrey Lee, how can you have Darren Reed at 50-50 when he's committed to another school? and at the time, I was just kind of just going off of what I was seeing and reading and hearing. So I kind of felt like Auburn's best shot to flip a kid like this was with Darren Reed. And that's my pat on the back. And for him to do it Friday, I thought spent a lot. And, we had Brett Whiteside on here, the executive director of On to Victory, talked about the priority that they were going to have on the offensive and defensive lines this year, and I think this is one of the first dominoes to fall there.
Right, and Jeffrey, after that commitment, Steven Ruzick, who's running the recruiting department right now, even tweeted out, a graphic or photo of the dominoes. Yeah, so they feel good about some other things. And so this was a big flip. So we're going to dedicate this show. You're the host. I'm stealing your bit here, but we're going to dedicate the next whatever we got left, 13, 14 minutes to flips. Who are Auburn's biggest flip targets moving forward? We know that the coaching situation is fluid on many levels. We don't know who assistants. We don't. There's unknowns. We get that. But who are the main guys right now as we're recording this on Sunday night? We'll point out. And we don't think some of this stuff is going to change, by the way. But who are the main flip targets, Jeffrey? So you tell me who, and we'll both give some intel on each guy, what we know anyway.
Well, two teams Auburn's really poaching right now, LSU. We got Darren Reed, and you've got DJ Chester, the big-time interior offensive lineman from Eagles Landing in the Atlanta area, McDonough, Georgia. And then Michigan State. Auburn's already poached Clay Whedon, and now they're going after Colton Hood. So I got Darren Reed, who's already flipped. You got Colton Hood from Michigan State, DJ Chester from LSU. Tony Mitchell. Let's don't overlook this kid. Yeah. Now, we've seen this movie before, Keith, but maybe this is a different version.
Yeah.
He's been to as many home games as a lot of these kids have.
4-star DB committed to Alabama. I was getting ahead of myself and interrupt Jeffrey, so I may apologize. But the first two guys you mentioned, DJ Chester, a All-American Bowl participant from McDonough, Georgia, Eagles Landing Christian, and then his teammate, who, by the way, just got bumped up in the rankings by
4-star.
Colton Hood, 4-star cornerback, whose dad and uncle and I think some other family members also played at Auburn. So he's visited Auburn like 3 or 4 times just this fall, I think 3 or 4 times. And, Auburn's pushing. I think we both agree. I think we've all put in picks that we think Colton Hood's going to flip. But DJ Chester's an interesting one because he visited Michigan, I want to say about a month ago. And then he says, hey, I'm going to commit a couple days. And everybody's like, oh, God, is it Michigan? But it was LSU.
Yeah.
So, okay, is that it? Is it over with? But lo and behold, I think you broke the news. He was at the Auburn game.
Shocked me.
Western Kentucky game, yeah. And so Auburn kids continued to work on him. And I think, Jeffrey, correct me if I'm wrong, he knows Darren Reed. Didn't they have a little Twitter exchange after?
Sure did. Congrats, brother. Something like that.
Yeah, something that not necessarily meaning a ton, but certainly better than not
acknowledging a relationship.
Yeah, better than not acknowledging it or not knowing him. So that's a high priority guy. He's been a high priority guy. Quite frankly, he's been a higher priority guy at times than even Darren Reed. And Auburn really identified him early, and then other schools jumped in and said, okay, this was a hell of an evaluation by Auburn because this guy's legit. Now he's a 4-star. He's in the All-American Bowl, which was the formerly the U.S. Army All-American Bowl. And it looks like they've got a shot now. And I do know, I spoke to somebody the other day, Jeffrey, I do think LSU does have some concern about losing DJ Chester. And that's Darren Reed. LSU's got some good defensive linemen committed. That's probably not the end of the world for LSU. I mean, he was it's a bigger get for LSU, for Auburn than it is a loss for LSU. I mean, he's not really good. He is. But they have other guys. But on the offensive line, I think Chester's one of the I shouldn't have said that. I mean, Reed's a huge pickup and not a guy you want to lose. But I just think need on the offensive line too. DJ Chester would be a monumental pickup. And again, that school, I think people at that school have always, Andrew Williams was from that school, the defensive lineman. He had a great experience at Auburn. He was at Auburn for 4 or 5 years. And I know there's a different coach at Eagles Landing Christian now, but it's always been a school that, been friendly to Auburn. Or people there speak highly of Auburn, and I think that's probably helping now. And we'll see if they can flip DJ Chester. I started looking at this the other night, Jeffrey, when I looked at your flip candidates, the guys we're going to go over. A top 12 class is still possible. Now, there's a lot to shake out here. But, they're going to sign 25 guys probably, or 20 to 25 guys. Now, they're going to save a lot of guys for the portal, but they got a shot to have a pretty good class. But isn't DJ Chester like the one – that's the guy. You just lost Janoris Wilson.
Be huge.
That's some scoop on Janoris Wilson. You just lost him. DJ Chester, man, that may be the biggest pickup in the class if you can pull that off.
Because you got to have those offensive line. You got to have those offensive linemen. DBs is also we mentioned Tony Mitchell, the Alabama commitment, came back to Auburn for the Western Kentucky game. I think that was his 4th game. And hey, Keith, we mentioned Stanquan Clark came for the LSU game. I think he came back in the summer as well. He's committed to Louisville, Miami Central. Kejuan Jenkins is already committed to Auburn. Reuben Bain is certainly very high on Auburn. Stanquan Clark, Lamar Seymour, all those Miami Central guys. Stanquan Clark being I would have him in my class projection.
Yeah, 4-star linebacker committed to Louisville, and then his teammate Lamar Seymour, 3-star receiver committed to Pitt. So again, 2 more flip candidates. Just a year ago, they flipped Camden Brown from Pittsburgh, a promising young receiver. I mean, that's you're the founder and president of his fan club, and so now he knows Lamar Seymour. He's told him good things about Auburn. Okay, so that's good. His quarterback at Miami Central, Kejuan Jenkins, has committed to Auburn. 2 of his other teammates, Stanquan Clark, who we're going to talk about in a second, he's considering Auburn, and so is 4-star edge, who's Reuben Bain, who's uncommitted at this time, but. I feel like Auburn thinks that Lamar Seymour is a realistic get. He's enjoyed his 2 visits up to Auburn this fall, and that's really put them in position. I mean, that's a Pitt-Auburn battle. With Stanquan Clark, I think you mentioned it. He's committed to Louisville, and Louisville recruits well in South Florida. Jeffrey and Walt. Why? A guy named
Crime Dog.
Griff. That's right, the Crime Dog. And so I don't think that's going to be an easy flip. But I think once the Auburn lands on that rock of stability, once the picture becomes completely clear, we're not going to go into all that because, again, we're recording Sunday night and this publishes Monday morning. Things change overnight. But once there's less fluidity in the situation and more stability, perceived stability, we're going to get a better picture of these guys at Miami Central. But they love Auburn. They love visiting. And now their boy, Kejuan Jenkins, their star quarterback, is going to Auburn. So I feel like they've got a really good shot. But Wesley McGriff, we know, is not going to go down without a fight. Okay? We know that for a fact. So Auburn's got its work cut out. But there is, and Jeffrey, you may be better sourced than me on this one. There's a lot of optimism at Auburn. There's no question about that.
Absolutely. I really want to hit these last because we can't mention flip candidates without at least throwing these guys. The Langston Hughes crew. Auburn has a commitment from 4-star defensive back Terrence Love from Langston Hughes in Fairburn, Georgia. We talk about kids committed to other schools, visiting Auburn numerous times throughout the season. Jelani Thurman, the 4-star tight end, committed to Ohio State. Who just went to Ohio State for Michigan's big ass whooping of the Buckeyes. He was there for that. But I'll tell you what, a Jelani Thurman, the Ohio State commitment, Bo Hughley, the 4-star offensive lineman, Georgia commitment, Josh Horton, the 3-star defensive lineman who is committed to North Carolina. To me, Auburn has the best shot with him. I think Jimmy Brumbaugh has a really good relationship with him. I'm not sure about Bo Hughley. I really wouldn't include him. Of those, Jelani Thurman, Josh Horton, Bo Hughley, I would include Josh Horton maybe in my class before I would include Thurman or Hughley.
I would have Sunday morning and Sunday afternoon. Now I'm a little more scared, and here's why. Well, here's why. With Joshua Horton, I was told a long time ago that when I say a long time ago, a couple months ago, if this was Georgia 5 years ago, the Georgia that wasn't recruiting nationally, he'd be a guy they'd go grab. They'd go try to grab that. He'd be a high priority. But once Georgia started recruiting nationally, it gave them more options, right? So they could kind of slow play in-state kids. Well, Jeremy Johnson of On3 reported Sunday afternoon that Georgia is now heavily involved with them. Okay. First of all, congratulations to Auburn for another good early evaluation. Makes you wonder. Now, he was supposedly wanted to commit to them earlier in the year, and for whatever reason, right, Jeffrey? I don't really know all the but it didn't happen. Well, then everybody else jumped on him, and North Carolina just had a pretty solid season, and they need help on defense. So that's their selling point, that they're going to try to get him on the field pretty early. Same with Auburn. At Georgia, it's a little different situation where they've got some veteran defensive linemen, but they also have been recruiting at such a high level. So we're still digging into that one. We don't know all the details. Is he a take for Georgia? Is he a guy they're going to push for? But according to Jeremy Johnson on 3, Georgia's now involved. You got to keep an eye on that. So to me, Thurman and Hughley, you got to watch them. I mean, Thurman, they both keep visiting. And, Auburn has been, again, we don't know. This is what's crazy. We don't know the direction of the offense moving forward. But if you look at Auburn's production the last couple of years with the tight end position, it's been great with John Samuel Schenker. Now, I will say this, regardless of what the offensive philosophy is, we have seen a greater usage of tight ends in the passing game in the last few. They're becoming one of the most important people in the offense. So I'm sure that's what's been told to him, regardless of what the system is. And all, you're a guy that can be utilized heavily at Auburn. And then, of course, like we've talked about, Jeffrey, you're selling everything else. The school, you're going to have friends here. Terrence Love seems to be super solid to Auburn. They're good buddies.
Recruiting the hell out of them.
And then Bo Hughley, obviously, he's a Georgia kid, committed to Georgia, but we kind of heard that Auburn may have recruited him harder the last few months, or maybe even the whole way through. Does that kind of at some point resonate with him?
Steven Ruzik's been all over these guys.
Absolutely. And so, again, I just think with those kids at that school, there's just cautious optimism. And there can't be too much more than that, because at various times it seemed like all of them were going to end up at Auburn at one, Yeah. And then, like, Bo Hughley was going to flip it. I think maybe it was Big Cat or something. And then it didn't happen. But that doesn't mean I know a lot of fans are ready to throw in the towel, but Auburn's continue to be persistent with them. And again, it's been more Ruzick than the coaches, quite frankly, from what I hear.
Yeah.
And, he's got him in the ball game, and now you're hitting that stretch run. Now, as a staff takes shape, and they see who's staying and who's going, they'll have a better idea of whether that's where they want to be. But they like Auburn a lot. There's no question about that. So Auburn's in the picture, Jeffrey.
Yes, guys. Darren Reed on board. Keep an eye on Colton Hood. I would probably say he's the next guy to go if there is one. DJ Chester certainly in that conversation. Stanquan Clark. I think Tony Mitchell would probably be a signing day flip if it were to happen.
Jeffrey, you've been all, and I mean to interrupt, but you've been all over that one. You've talked. I mean, what's your gut telling you on that one?
Honestly, he would be in my class projection right now.
Really? In your Auburn class projection? Interesting.
He would be.
Interesting.
Not obviously a lot can happen over the next 4 weeks, but our 3.5 weeks. But right now he would be in my if Zach Etheridge is still here.
Yeah, there's a lot of ifs here. Mm-hmm. And when you start talking about, and I think you're getting ready to wrap up, but we actually have a little more time than you think, Jeffrey, because we had
okay. I knew it was going by fast.
We fumbled something earlier that you all aren't going to hear, but but anyway, so we got about 3 minutes left. But no, again, all these guys we've talked about, if Auburn lands half or more than half, then all of a sudden that number 28 class ranking starts rising and rising. Now, could there be some guys that they lose after the coaching change? It's still possible. I mean, most of the kids are telling us, hey, they're locked in. Of course, does the new staff want them, though? There's the variables here. But those guys aren't that highly ranked. So you don't want to lose anybody. I don't want anybody to go. Don't get me wrong. But if you did, you're not going to lose a lot of points in the rankings.
Right.
Play. But you're not – if we're talking strictly in terms of rankings, you wouldn't lose too much unless like a Jeremiah Cobb, the outstanding running back, who's the highest rated commit. Actually, I guess Darren Reed's the highest rated commit now. But you wouldn't lose too much, okay, in terms of ranking. And then all these guys you mentioned, Tony Mitchell, Bo Hughley, Jelani Thurman, all 4 stars. Colton Hood, 4-star. Stanquan Clark, 4-star. Lamar Seymour, 3-star.
DJ Chester, 4-star.
4-star All-American. So if you add 7 or 8 more 4-stars, all of a sudden you're looking down in a lot of classes. You ain't looking up at them anymore. And all these guys we mentioned can play. Now, Bo Hughley's probably a little bit of a project, okay? He's a
stretch. He's a stretch at a 4, I think.
He's got to gain weight. But that's you expect that out of offensive lineman. And hell, that's what you got the portal for these days, right? But Jelani Thurman, freak athlete. Both his parents, I think, were athletes at Georgia. Colton Hood, great bloodlines, right? DJ Chester's a guy that probably could play early. He could maybe get in the rotation in year 1. Hey, there's true freshmen starting all across the SEC. If you got 4 other guys, veteran guys, you could plug in a freshman there and you're not scared shitless, you know what I mean, to do so. So all these guys, now Ruben Bade's not a flip candidate, but if you land him, that's a guy that's probably going to play a lot in year 1.
Yeah.
The guy's got 20 sacks playing down in Miami. I mean, I feel like there's a bright future ahead. And if you only land half of them, improvement. It's an improvement. And, credit to the staff behind the scenes.
Man.
NIL we know is, involved. I mean, it does feel like a new day. We're just waiting for all the other pieces to come in.
Keith, before we go, man, I saw a new offer go out to a transfer tight end today.
Yeah.
You had a story on that. Hell, I missed it. I was checking the front page, and I was like, shit, when did they offer this guy?
I got to look up his name now.
Auburn offered a transfer tight end, on Sunday afternoon from – say that again?
Kyle Morlock from Shorter University.
In Atlanta?
If that's where Shorter is.
Is that?
It's in Rome. It's in Rome, Georgia.
That's what I said.
And that's where, and that's where he's from. I think that's where he played high school football. But here's what you need to know about him. This is not some weird offer. This is a guy that had 51 catches for 808 yards and 11 touchdowns, twice named an All-American at Division II. Now, obviously, that's a lower level. But, Jeffrey, he's 6'7", 250. And here's who else is offered. LSU, Florida State, NC State, Missouri, Pitt. I'm losing count here. Liberty. I mean, so he's got schools after him. Also talking to Florida. And if you're Auburn, your starting tight end this year, John Samuel Schenker. I think he just was finished his 6th season. He's done. I believe he's done. After him, you've got Luke Deal and Tyler Fromm, both valuable players, redshirt juniors. Now that 2020 year didn't count against them, but they're still getting long in the tooth in terms of for college players, right? So you're going to need more bodies. Again, what did we say about the?
There's one more. There's Brandon.
The kid out of Texas, but he's a little younger than these guys.
Right.
I think he's maybe a year behind.
And another thing, Keith, Auburn, unless it's Jelani Thurman, Auburn probably doesn't sign a high school tight end because and
you just don't know who you're going to lose. You don't, so this is a guy you put the offer out, and if the new staff likes him, then you move forward. He's in Rome, Georgia. So if Georgia doesn't offer, or Bama doesn't offer, or Tennessee doesn't offer, you're probably in pretty good shape, quite frankly. He's right down the road. Rome's like being in Auburn. You've been there, right, Jeffrey?
I have.
Yeah. I mean, so he would probably fit the kind of the culture of Auburn. No, we'll see. 6'7", 250. That's about Brandon Frazier's size. He's got a lot of people after him.
Frazier.
Somebody to keep an eye on. Somebody to definitely keep an eye on. But again, the new staff is going to have to decide, okay, how hard do we as a staff want to go after this guy? But Steven Ruzick and those guys, they couldn't wait for a new staff to put an offer in. That gets Auburn in the door, and then you hand the baton to whoever is going to be in charge of that. And by the way, it may be Steven Ruzick. We don't know. We'll see.
Sure.
But interesting offer, no doubt.
Absolutely. Hey, great show, guys. We appreciate everybody listening. If you haven't subscribed to Auburn Live on 3, we've got all the latest on the coaching search, the football team, basketball team, recruiting. We're doing it all. Also, like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Please hit that like and subscribe button. Even hit those notifications, man. Also, one more time on Caleb Schofield there at Mike Patton Auto in LaGrange, Georgia. Give Caleb a call. F-150's invoice only through the rest of the month. 334-531-0996. Keith, appreciate you joining us. We'll be back Wednesday morning for another Inside the 20, and we'll have shows all through the week. Stay tuned to Auburn Live on 3. Appreciate everybody. For Keith, for Zach in the back, I'm Jeffrey Lee. I'll stay out of the left lane. See ya.